Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the podcast. Very excited. Actually, no, I'll take that back. I'm very nervous about today's episode, and you'll understand why once we start getting into the topic. I have experienced some health issues in my past. I mentioned them very briefly in episode 1 of the podcast. Talked about my experience with running and how I actually went through some challenges, to where the point to where the doctors were like, can't run, don't do a half marathon. Anyways, if you haven't listened to that story, go back, listen to episode 1, you'll understand the context. Anyways, the thing is I have gone through some serious health challenges the past almost 2 years, and I'm now starting to finally get better. The story itself is it's a journey, really, is what it is. But I was mentioning this to someone at work the other day. I was telling him the story, my experience, how I was handling what I was going through, some of my thoughts, and what I did, and ultimately coming out on the other side. And he said to me, he goes, "You need to tell that story. More people need to hear it." I'm very hesitant to tell this story because it puts me in a vulnerable spot, right? But that's, you need to be a little bit vulnerable in order to relate to others. And that's what I'm going to do tonight. So stick with me on this and we'll go through it. Let's rewind. I'll walk you through the very beginning and some of the context behind it. If you've listened to any of my other episodes of the podcast, you'll understand that I've always tried to live an active lifestyle. That's always been a priority in my life. I've always made sure I was on a sports team growing up. That was my mom's doing. She had a rule. It's a pretty good rule, actually. You either play a full-time sport, so you dedicate all your time to some kind of sport like volleyball, basketball, football, whatever, or you get a job. And me, as a high schooler, it's like the last thing I want to do is spend all my time working, right? I had no concept of money at the time. So I was like, I don't care. I don't want to do that. I'd rather play sports. Forget working. I had it pretty easy in that sense. Anyways, so going back to it, I was always in sports. Played basketball growing up, volleyball in high school for a long time, and was really passionate about it. I would lift weights after school with my friends. We all thought we were going to be like Arnold, growing up, like, let's go pack on the protein, guys, get some meat on our bones. We all thought we were these huge guys. It's pretty good. Anyways, so I was always active, tried to live that way. And that's been a very high priority in my life. It still is to this day. I wake up every day at 4:30 and hit the gym. If I don't hit the gym, I always feel weird, groggy, kind of behind in my day. Also doesn't have to be the gym. Like if I just need to get up and move, really is what it is. Puts me in a good mindset, gives me energy for the day, and makes me think, boom, I just conquered something difficult. What else is coming my way? Bring it. So I love exercising and I love staying healthy and active. And about 2 years ago, I had this weird thing start to occur to me. I saw these spots in my eyes, right? This is how it started. It's really strange. But I started seeing spots in my eyes. And I was like, this is kind of weird. But they would progress to the point to where I would get headaches, very strong migraines, to the extent of I was locked in my room. Not locked. I could obviously leave. But I was in my room, pitch black, and any little pigment of light that would come in would just throw me out and really hurt my brain. It was weird. I've never experienced anything like it before. So we go to an eye doctor and they're like, okay, that's kind of strange. Like your eyes look great. I don't see anything weird in them. But let's get some blood work done. When's the last time you got blood work done? And I have no idea. Maybe my last physical, which was 4 years ago. I don't know. And so the doctor goes, let's get that done. Come back and we'll look at it. So we do that. We get my blood work done. And they were checking all my basic levels of like hemoglobin, my white blood cell count, red blood cell count, basically everything that you would check up and make sure that I'm healthy. And they saw that my iron was incredibly low. So I was super anemic. and which would make sense because I was also starting to have incredibly low energy. My red blood cell count was critically low. My white blood cell count was critically low, and my hemoglobin levels were low. Really, everything that you would want to be at a good level was not what it should have been at like someone with my age. Going through it all, I was a 22-year-old, 23 or 22-year-old kid, just trying to figure out life, and all of a sudden, all this stuff happens that doesn't happen to people my age, and it was getting weird. So we discovered all those levels are low. So I take that blood work. I go back to my regular family physician. I say, I don't know what you think about these things, but what are your thoughts? And he looks at them all, and he gets this look on his face, and he goes, I'm going to put you in contact with this doctor. I don't know if I should say his name, so I'm not going to, but he's a cancer doctor who specializes in blood cancers. So leukemia, lymphoma, and those types of cancers. He sends me a referral to him. And at the time, I'm like, this is super weird. Why am I going to see a cancer doctor? But my family doctor basically told me, he goes, there's nothing really I can do. So go talk to him. And we see this doctor. And I'm kind of freaking out at the time. I mean, any person that's ever dealt with cancer in your family or personally, or like seen a friend go through it, it's a difficult challenge to say the least. It's a hard thing to see someone go through that whole thing. And in my mind, I'm thinking, well, it sounds like that's exactly what I'm going to have to go do, is deal with cancer. I might have cancer. I don't know. Because all my blood levels and everything, it kind of pointed to that direction. So I'm going to go see this doctor with a very grim outlook. I just didn't know what was going to happen. So we go in, he brings us in, and he had the same look of concern. He's like, I don't know, someone your age should not have these levels. You should be healthy. Like, this is weird. So he orders a bunch more tests, and same thing, go back. And he's like, well, this is weird. Like, we're not finding a diagnosis yet. Fast forward about 3 more iterations of that. More tests, go back. We don't know what it is. Let's get some more tests. Go back. Still don't know what it is. And it was just this never ending process. Got CT scans done of my abdomen to check for like abnormally large intestines, or they were looking at my spleen. They did a MRI of my brain. At the time, they found nothing. There were all these different scans that they were doing, these different tests. I even got a bone marrow biopsy done of my, like, within my hip. And the only thing that they found there was I have this weird genetic mutation that only lymphoma and leukemia patients have. And it's like, well, I don't have leukemia or lymphoma. You guys have ruled that out. So what is this thing? And they had no idea. And that went on for a long time. And it got to the point to where we would go to the doctor and expect to not understand what was going on. And I was seeing the doctor every couple of weeks. And the medical bills were racking up. Like, all these different tests that this guy was ordering were starting to hit my bank account. And as someone who's trying to establish themselves in a career or do all those things, it was really difficult for me to be like, okay, well, this could be going to, me moving out of my house and putting a down payment on a future home. But instead, it's going to these tests that are just going to come back as inconclusive. We have no idea what the hell's going on with you. Just hang in there. And that's what I was being told, is just keep doing what you're doing. Don't forget, at this time, my energy levels are so low to the point to where it is difficult to get out of bed, like almost painstaking. And I was losing motivation to exercise and be active. And knowing my history as someone that loves to always push themselves and try new things in terms of like physical fitness and whatnot, it was kind of worrisome. And I was like, well, I want to do these things, but I can't because I have no energy. And when I'm talking no energy, I've never felt like this in my life. Like, it's hard to explain. I started getting very weak. My muscles, they weren't strong. Um, and that's when the weight loss began. Is I wasn't able to maintain my muscles in the gym because I wasn't able to work out, do these things. But then when I would eat, I would feel really, really sick and would have no appetite. It was the strangest thing. So here I am, you know, losing weight, can't move because I have fatigue, still seeing spots in my eye. So I have to wear an eye patch because otherwise I would get migraines and I'd have to stay in my room for 3 days until it passes in complete darkness. Like, sure, you're probably thinking, oh, that sounds great. Like, go lay in your room and watch Netflix for 3 days, hang out, do whatever you want. That wasn't the case. If I turned on the TV, boom, my headache would get 1,000 times worse. So all I could do during the time was listen to audiobooks and podcasts like you're listening right now. Which was another reason why I wanted to start this podcast, because there's people out there that need a little bit of entertainment or need to relate to someone. And I'm hoping that this story can do exactly that. If I can relate to someone out there that's going through something similar, like not knowing what's going on with their health, but seeing themselves deteriorate or see another person go through this, I want to be a support for someone like that. Going back to the story, we were just continuing to see the doctor. I was trying to maintain a positive attitude, but it was getting bleak. It really was. And my friends would reach out to me and they'd say, hey, do you want to hang out? And I would say, no, can't. Like, not interested, really, is what it was. I would always make up excuses of like why I couldn't do something, why I couldn't go hang out with a group of friends who invited me out to dinner. It's making excuses because I just didn't feel good. I had no energy and I didn't want to do anything. It was kind of sad. I feel like I lost almost a year of my life just because I was not able to do what I wanted to do. Now, bear with me because this is kind of where it gets dark, because we're going to explore my mindset during this time. So as I would continue looking in the mirror, I was noticeably seeing myself look more and more like a skeleton. I know I'm still pretty relatively skinny, but I'm not 139 pounds anymore. And at the time, that was what I got down to in my lowest. But going back to my mirror, I started noticing this difference in my weight and how it made me look. And that was pretty hard on my mental game too. Because I've always been this kind of big, stocky guy who's always strong. And that was going away. I was almost losing my identity as that person who I've always thought I was. So in my head, I'm thinking I'm dying because they're not telling me any answers. My body is visually deteriorating. I can't hold food down. I was, I could hold food down. I just couldn't eat a lot because it would make me sick. Let me rephrase that. But then my relationships really started to tank too. And that's where I really regret things. Because I had this vision of like, I don't know if I'm going to be alive by the end of the year. I was thinking that, especially when I was in my room by myself in the dark because I couldn't look and otherwise I'd get like a really bad headache. That was my thought process is, well, I'm going to die. I don't know where this is going to go. And I started cutting people out of my life. And it wasn't fair to them at all because they would reach out to me and I wouldn't respond, or I would be like, yeah, no, I'm doing good. But in my mind, I'm like, I don't want to hold these relationships because if I do end up dying, I don't want it to be hard on them. Because I saw what it was doing to my parents. At the time I lived with my parents. And every single day, I'm not a dad, but seeing my dad and my mom look at me and the same thing, they didn't have answers. They saw my body failing. and they were scared too. They didn't know what was going on. It was a very dark time. And I cannot imagine what it was like for them to see me go through that. And with that said, that's why I was like, well, I understand how hard it is for them to watch their son go away or like fizzle away in a sense, you could say, because I was disappearing. My body was going crazy. And with that mindset, I was like, I don't want to be a burden on any other people. So if I do end up dying, I want to make it as easy as possible. Again, I'm sorry, this is kind of dark, but this is my thought process, and it's a story that I think people need to hear. That's what I was going through, and that's what I was thinking. And as I mentioned, I got down to 139 pounds. That's the lowest that I was. I'm 6'3". The average weight for someone my age should be at least 175 pounds. But I was 139. And I was scared. There's this picture. I took progress pictures of, it was about a period of 3 to 4 months. And the progress pictures documented me losing that weight. And the other day, when I was visiting Arizona, I sat down with my dad and I was like, I've never showed anyone these, but I think I'm ready to show you. And I didn't want to show anyone because in these photos, I look like a skeleton. You can see every single bone in my body, and my face is sunken in to the max, like a very sickly looking face. And I showed my dad, and he didn't say anything. He wasn't talking. I was like, "What? What's the matter?" And he goes, "That's not you." And he said, "I'm glad that you didn't show me that," because he was worried. And I think that probably would have driven him to really be scared for my situation. With that all said, this isn't a negative story because it's a story of me overcoming and getting better, right? Because I'm on the up and end here. We saw another doctor, and he wanted to look at the brain scan of my MRI again. So he takes the brain scan, and a few days later, we get a call back and goes, "Hey, you should probably come into the office because we found a tumor in your brain." And I think, okay, well, there's my death sentence. I'm dead. I'm doomed. See you later, guys. That's really what I thought. So I go into the office and he says, "You have a tumor in your pituitary gland. It's benign. It's not growing. It's not cancerous, but it's there. And because of that, it took my hormone levels and basically just destroyed them all across the board. My testosterone was a mess. In fact, it was at the levels of a newborn baby boy. And if you're a man, you understand the importance of testosterone. Makes you feel good, gives you energy, lets you put on some muscle, keeps your bones healthy. Without testosterone, your body starts to see some real negative effects, and that's one of the things I was experiencing. A few other hormone levels were out of whack. Don't want to really go into those ones, but it was scary. And hearing again that the tumor was benign and wasn't cancerous was a relief. It was, or I guess it is still small enough to the point to where they don't feel like it needs to be operated on. But every year we're going to get it monitored, checked out, make sure it's not growing. And if it is, then take action. But that's what the cause of all this thing was. This little tiny tumor in my brain or my pituitary gland. Again, I'm not a doctor, so I don't know the specific anatomy of the human body, but that's what was going on, and that's what sent me into whack. That's what messed up all my blood levels. That's what messed up my testosterone. That's why I was losing muscle. Wasn't able to put it on because I had the testosterone levels of a newborn baby boy. I don't think you understand how weird that is. Like, think about that. I'm 23 years old and I have I have less testosterone than my 3-year-old nephew. So good job. Good job on that one. Um, anyways, it was really difficult to hear that, but it was also a relief because we finally identified what was going on. And we found another doctor to go to. It was an endocrinologist and got me on some therapy. And that's what I'm on right now. So I'm not 100% better, but I'm getting there every day. And, you know, this experience has taught me a lot because I'm still not 100%. As you can tell, still very skinny. I'm working hard to put on some weight. So I'm eating a lot, lifting heavy. I'm bummed on this, by the way. So I had a goal to deadlift 315. My max ever, for anyone who cares, my max deadlift is 405 pounds. All right. Believe it or not, it is. I have a witness, my brother. If I need to get him on here to say it, then I will. Okay. Anyways, my max is 405. I went down to Arizona a couple weeks ago and I was like, I'm gonna hit 315 again. Feel good. Which by the way, 315 used to be light. Too bad. Anyway, I didn't do it, which was kind of a bummer, but the other day I hit 275 for 5 reps, which was pretty good. I was happy about that. Anyways, so I'm starting to get better, and that's the point of what I'm trying to say. And the other day, and this is why this story was brought up, our company ran a 5K. I had already worked out for the day, but I ran it anyway. And I didn't need to because I worked out, right? Like I felt pretty good about that. I usually try and conserve my energy, but at the time the race was starting, I felt good. And I said, you know what? Because of how I feel and because I know what's the other side is like of not being able to do that, of being stuck in your bed where you have no energy to even get out, where you think you're dying, you don't have any answers going on. I know what that's like. And it's hard. And so if I have the energy to go and run a 5K with my company, I'm going to do it. And I'm going to give it my all. Like I said, I know exactly what it's like to be on the other side of that, to not have a body that works that way. And obviously, I'm lucky enough to where we were able to diagnose a treatment. It wasn't a fatal thing that was going to happen to me. It was just a very difficult year and a half of no answers, of no energy, of feeling like I was going to die. It was a very difficult year and a half. And luckily, like I said, I'm getting help, I'm getting better. But if there's someone in their, who's sitting in their room right now who is going through that experience of, I don't know what's going on, I have some serious health issues, I'm in a dark place, I want you to know that you're not alone because other people have gone through that too. And there's people there to support you. Do not cut them out of your life. Let them be there to help you out. Because that's where I went wrong. And I could have used that support at times from my friends, from other family members that, I kind of cut off a little bit or, took back on my relationship with. Obviously, I still love my family, but I didn't put in as much work as I should with some of the relationships because, as I mentioned, I thought I was dying. But if you're out there and you're going through that same thing, hang on. Just wait a little more. You may or may not figure it out. I don't know what your given situation is, and everyone's situation is unique. But just know you're not alone. And that knowledge alone, if I had that when I was going through what I was, that people have experienced this before, and that there's people who have it worse than I do, that knowledge would have helped a little bit, to be completely honest. So hang in there and don't stop. Don't stop getting after it. Even if you're in that situation, getting after it might mean just making it through the day. And if that's what you have to do, then just make it through the day. Make it until tomorrow. You can do it. And I know this might sound super cheesy, but you can do it. Hang in there. There's people here for you. There's people to support you. If you're going through something like that and you need to talk to someone, reach out to me. You know, that's the beauty. That's the best part of social media is we're able to connect. You or anyone else that you know is going through something that I like similar to what I went through, then reach out to me because I know what it's like. And I know what it's like to go from doom and gloom to finally having joy again and finally feeling like I can do it because other people have been there before and I'm not alone. So hang in there if that's your case. That's really my story. That's my story, my health for the past 2 years. Is it's been hell and back in terms of like figuring out what's going on. With that said, I've learned so much. I've learned to be patient. I've learned to really value relationships because life is fragile. You don't know when it's going to be taken from you. It's kind of, again, like I said, dark, but that's true. I could go outside and get hit by a bus. Who knows? We never know what life is like. It's very fragile. So it taught me to value life. It taught me to see who I really was. You know, how tough was I in terms of my mental toughness? Was I just going to go to the doctor, hear that there's no answers and cry about it? No, I wasn't going to do that. I was going to say, okay, what's the next steps? How are we going to find out what's going on with me? What are the answers that could help me? It taught me to be easier on myself. Like, you know, oftentimes we are way too hard on ourselves and we take others' perspectives personally. And that's another thing it taught me that I love is like, and what gave me motivation to start the podcast is I don't really care what other people think. People might hear this story and be like, wow, you're just a wimp. Like, there's people who do have leukemia and lymphoma who go through hell. And I'm not saying that my experience was anything like what others have. Mine could be completely easy compared to some other situations, health or not health related. But it was hard. And what I'm telling you is I can relate to you if that's what you're going through. And I'm willing to talk to you. It just taught me a lot about myself. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to start this whole podcast is I learned about mental toughness. I learned about how to apply those lessons, what to do when you are in those extremely dark places and how to get out of them. So reach out to me if you need help. So I'm here. You know, not going anywhere. And I'm getting better. So that's my story. And as I mentioned, I always love leaving you guys with a quote. So the simple one from Winston Churchill, I brought him up a few times, but here it goes. If you're going through hell, keep going. You'll make it through. I know you will. Just hang in there. Anyways, thank you guys so much for listening to this episode of the podcast. And it was kind of a different episode, a little bit more heavy. You know, that's the thing about this. And I want to talk about different topics on this podcast, heavy or not. If someone comes on here and just wants to chat it up about good things, we'll do it. But there are going to be times when we're going to have some difficult conversations, and that's okay. Because getting after it is a constant battle. And if getting after it was easy, then it would just be rainbows and unicorns all day and no one would learn anything and get better. Growth is a choice. And it's not even an easy one to choose. I could have taken that approach of my whole experience. And I could have taken an attitude of, well, I'm dying, don't care. I'm going to let my life go. And I could have really gotten in a bad place. But I pushed through and I got through. and I'm still getting after it today. I'm lucky enough to do so. And that's why I want to do what I keep doing. I want to push myself because I know what the other side is like. And if you are going through that other side right now, just hang in there. Hang in there. There's people that are there to support you. And like I said, reach out to me. I'm willing to talk. So thank you guys so much for listening to this week's episode. And keep getting after it.